Okay, this is your 2-minute call. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. Give you a chance to find a shady spot. As was mentioned earlier, there is ice water bottles over under the canopy tent. We get all set to go, we'll be ready to go.
I found a shady spot.
There you go. You ready, Jerry? Hey, Gene Moyer, can you come forward, please? Here he comes, Jerry. Okay, we'll get started. Good morning and welcome to the City Hall Park here in Frederick, Maryland. I'm Michael Moore. My name's Mike. I'm president of the St. Lawrence Everhart Chapter, Sons of the American Revolution, here in Frederick. This is our hometown. Today we gather to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the organization of the Maryland Riflemen. This occurred on this exact day in the year 1775. That's June 21st, 1775, 250 years ago. The riflemen gathered right here in front of City Hall. As you will hear today, those riflemen were all expert backwoods sharpshooters. They organized at this location to prepare for a 500-mile march on foot to Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's right across the river from Boston. You'll get the history of why, what, where, and when later. The event is one of many the nation has used to commemorate and celebrate the events that occurred 250 years ago. From the first discussions about independence through the Boston Tea Party, the First and Second Continental Congresses, and the shots at Lexington and Concord, all the way to the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783. We and other SAR chapters, along with the DAR and their chapters, will be commemorating these events as close as possible to the anniversary that they occurred. You may not have ever heard about the Sons of the American Revolution. I see a few people out there that may not. The SAR, like the DAR, is a lineage organization. That means that each of our members are direct descendants of a patriot, male or female, who served our nation during our fight for independence. Our National Society was founded on April 30th, 1889, 136 years ago. We have over 37,000 members around the world. Our members include presidents, world leaders, and folks like you and me. Our members have researched their ancestral history back through the generations to prove, through acceptable genealogical records, that they have a direct line of ascension from a patriot ancestor who served and supported our original 13 colonies. By serving and supporting, we don't mean just fighting the war. There were people throughout the colonies who provided financial support, goods and services such as food, shelter, and clothing, and they also helped, as my one ancestor did, serve the sick and wounded at the hospitals around the country. The mission of the Sons of the American Revolution is to honor our ancestors by promoting patriotism serving our communities, and educating and inspiring future generations about the founding principles of our country. We gather here today as part of that mission, along with our compatriots from Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia, our partners from the DAR, and chapters from Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia, and all other lineage organizations or historical societies that may have joined us. We thank you all for coming today. At this time, I ask you if you can stand for the invocation and remain standing for the presentation of colors. I ask Reverend Dr. Joseph Engel, 3rd State SAR Vice President and the State Chaplain, to come forward and offer the invocation.
Let's pray together. We thank you for this occasion, Father, the organization of the Maryland Rifle Companies. Without their contribution to the cause of freedom, we would not enjoy the blessings of liberty that you have given to us. Remind us of our obligations and responsibilities in maintaining this republic for which they struggled and sacrificed. I pray that our patriotism will be felt in our hearts. May we be stirred with the lessons of liberty. We thank you in the name above all names. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Joe. Our patriot ancestors stood up bravely and volunteered to serve the colonies during our fight for independence. So in the spirit of those ancestor volunteers, I have asked to volunteer 2 young scouts from Scouting America. You want to come up, ladies? They did volunteer. I didn't have to force them. Come on up here with us. You're going to help us lead the pledge. Our Color Guard commander today is compatriot Gerald Harris, District Commander for Maryland Society, Sons of the American Revolution. Excuse me. Assisting Commander Harris today, as assisting me, are the Scouts from Troop 1775 here in Frederick County. You ready? Just stay where you are. Color Guard, advance the colors. Salute. That's right.
Color guard, halt. Left, face.
Color Guard, present the colors.
Color guard, present arms.
Okay, you ready? Repeat after me and the Scouts. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you stay here. Color Guard, post the colors.
Color guard, order, arms. Right about, face. Post national colors. Post remaining colors.
Color Guard, dismissed.
Color guard, right, face. More time, march.
Okay, ladies, thank you very much.
Forward,
You're a big help.
March.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait till they march out. My mistake. Okay, there you go. Thanks again. At this time, I'll ask past chapter president Carl Woodcock to come forward and lead our members in the SAR pledge that can be found on the back of your program. You got a mic there.
We, the descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
Thanks, Woody. I would now, well, let me say this. The American Creed is a patriotic statement written by William Tyler Page in 1917 that expresses loyalty to the United States and its democratic principles. I now ask Dorothy Olson, Regent of the Frederick Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, if she will come forward and lead us in the American's Creed found on the back cover of your program.
I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies.
Thank you, Dorothy. At this time, I'll call our first vice president from our chapter, Reverend Dr. Joseph Chandler, to introduce some special guests we have here today. Joe? You want to read it or? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sit down, please. I figure in a seat everybody likes. Hey, Joe.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Joseph C. Chandler, Jr. I am the first Vice President for the Sons of the American Revolution, Sergeant Lawrence Everhart Chapter. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce our special guests in attendance today. Frederick City Mayor Michael O'Connor, Ms. Isla Bravo, representing County Executive Jessica Fitwater, co-chair of the Frederick County U.S. Semi-Quincentennial, the state officers, Dr. Joseph Engel, Maryland Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, third Vice President and State Chaplain, under the Sergeant Lawrence Everhart, past presidents, Reverend Dr. Joseph Engel, Carl Woody Woodcock, Edward Spanos. The SAR chapters, Alan Phelps, Vice President, Colonel James Wood, the second chapter, Virginia's Sons of the American Revolution, Michael Benson, President, General Adam Stevens, Chapter, West Virginia, DAR officers, Dorothy Olson, Regent, Frederick Chapter, Isabel Cerez, Regent, Carrollton Manor Chapter. Other organizations are as follows: Peter Hansen Michael, President of John Hansen Memorial Association and descendant of John Hansen. At this time, I must ask, are there any other guests from other lineage or historical societies that would like to introduce themselves at this time?
Joe, I have one. Our state president, Dan. Can you stand up? Our apologies. We did not get you on the list in time. But he's the head guy that leads us out of throughout the state, all the different chapters. Okay, it is now my honor. Thanks, Joe. It is now my honor to ask Frederick City Mayor Michael O'Connor to offer his remarks. Mr. Mayor, Mike, you want to come up here?
is very kind. Mike said he was trying to keep me out of the heat. I guess he doesn't know what a politician has to deal with every day. There's no way to get out of the heat. It really is an honor to be here today. Thank you for using the front lawn of City Hall as the landscape for this wonderful commemoration. As we celebrate our own heritage in this country, I also think that it's important that we take a moment to acknowledge the people who occupied these lands before we did, the tribes of the Piscataway, Susquehannock, and Tuscarora peoples, who were stewards over this land for centuries before Western Europeans arrived in North America. I'm reminded at events like this, and we're going to be seeing a lot of these and already have over the next year plus as we acknowledge the 250th, the semi-quincentennial of the United States of America. And when you read about these things in the history books when you're in school, because history is long and there's a lot of stories to tell, it all gets very truncated. And when you look back on it now and you learn that history in elementary school, it seems very magical. The American Revolution happened, the United States was established, we're all free, we kicked out the British, and here we are. But it's today, and it's this acknowledgement of the Maryland Rifle Company that we understand that the history of what we're going to celebrate 250 years ago did not unfold in a single day or even over a few years. It was decades in the making and decades in the aftermath to continue to do the hard work that's necessary to keep this democracy and to keep this republic. It was the actions of literally tens of thousands, perhaps millions of people doing tiny little things every day to create this history that we are now able to celebrate. And I think when we think about the profound nature of what it means to acknowledge that work 250 years ago, and to think about all of the people, the ones that we know very well, and ones like those we celebrate today who are perhaps not as well known, much like preserving a democracy or being the mayor of a city today, it is not a single individual that undertakes that work. It is the work of every resident, every employee, every person who visits and celebrates in this community that makes Frederick the community that it is, and it is what over generations and centuries across this vast nation that makes the United States of America what it is and can be and must be today. And so I am here with a proclamation on behalf of the City of Frederick to acknowledge the 250th anniversary of the Maryland Rifle Companies. I know that a lot of this history is going to be recited today, so I'm not going to go into all those details because others will share that information, but it is all on this proclamation. What I will say is that it is my honor to proclaim today, June 21st, 2025, as Maryland Rifle Company Day in the city of Frederick, and encourage all residents to recognize and honor the bravery, legacy, and foundational role of the Maryland Rifle Companies in our shared American history, signed by the mayor on behalf of our city council and grateful, patriotic, proud residents of the city of Frederick. Thank you so much to our sons and daughters of the American Revolution for all that you do to make sure that this history is preserved and remembered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stay cool. Okay, thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Now I would like to ask Isela Bravo, a representative County Executive Jessica Fitzwater, County Executive Jessica Fitzwater, to come forward for her remarks. Welcome again.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you everybody for being here today. My name is Isela Bravo, and I am here representing our County Executive Jessica Fitzwater, who sends her regrets. We know how important celebrations such as this is because it honors our history. And in order to honor ourselves, we need to know our history. Otherwise, we all know that history will repeat itself. I am also co-chair of the 250th Commission for Frederick County. I invite everybody to look at our website. We have a 250th Commission. And if you are interested in events like this, we also have a 250th events page. If you look up Visit Frederick 250, you will find events throughout this year and next year. So we really hope you will join us. We hope you will bring your thoughts and your enthusiasm as we continue to celebrate these momentous occasion. I as well will not read the history, as it will be told so much more colorfully than I will be able to do it justice. But I do think it is important to read the last part of this, which says, whereas Frederick Countyans and all Western Marylanders can justly take pride in our contribution to creating the Continental Army, which over 8 years won our independence and created a new sovereign nation. Therefore, as the County Executive of Frederick County, Maryland, I hereby proclaim June 21st, 2025 as Maryland Rifle Company Day in Frederick County and do commend this observance to all of our residents. Signed, the County Executive of Frederick County, Maryland, Jessica Fitzwater.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's flip it out. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. This is you? Okay, now it's my pleasure to take you back to school. Ed Spanis, our chapter historian, is now going to tell you about why we're here, what happened here, and how it contributed to the freedoms we have today. Ed?
Thank you, Mike. On the 14th day of June, 1775, about 8 weeks after Lexington and Concord, the Second Continental Congress was meeting in Philadelphia. Momentous decisions were made that day. First, the Continental Congress adopted the New England Army of Observation as its own and took responsibility for that. Secondly, the Continental Congress authorized the creation of 10 companies of expert riflemen from the frontier areas of the Middle Colonies. On the following day, June 15th, George Washington received his appointment as, quote, General and Commander-in-Chief of the Armies of the United Colonies. Note that it's United Colonies, it's not yet the United States. Pennsylvania was directed to raise 6 companies. Maryland and Virginia were directed to raise 2 companies each. Maryland's delegates to the Continental Congress assigned the task of raising Maryland's 2 rifle companies to Frederick County and the Frederick County Committee of Observation, Frederick County being much larger than it was today. And now Peter Michael Hansen, who's a descendant of John Hansen, who was the chairman of the John Hansen Memorial Association and the author of a book, Remembering John Hansen, will tell us what happened as it was recorded in the minutes taken by the committee clerk in the Committee of Observation. You want to come up here? Or speak wherever you want.
Good morning. At a meeting of the Committee of Observation of Frederick County at the courthouse on the 21st day of June, 1775, a letter from the delegates of Maryland and a resolve of the Congress enclosed therein were read, requiring 2 companies of expert riflemen to be furnished by this county to join the Army near Boston, to be there employed as light infantry under the command of the chief officer of that army, and propose the pay for the officers and soldiers. That they find their own arms and clothes, that each company consists of a captain, 3 lieutenants, 4 sergeants, 4 corporals, a drummer, and 68 privates. that the form of the enlistment be as follows.
Please step forward for the oath.
I, Gerald Harris, have this 22nd day of June in the year 1775 voluntarily enlisted as a soldier in the American Continental Army for 1 year, unless soon discharged. I do bind myself to conform in all instances to such rules and regulations as are or shall hereafter be established for the government of the said army.
Resolved that the agreeable to the question requisition of the Congress and on the terms by them proposed, 2 companies of expert riflemen be forthwith raised, officered by the following gentlemen. Of the first company, Michael Cressup, Captain, Thomas Warren, Jr., Joseph Cressup, Jr., Richard Davis, Lieutenants. Of the second company, Thomas Price, Captain, Otho Holland Williams, John Ross, Key, Lieutenants, and another lieutenant to be chosen by Captain Price as approved by the committee.
Thank you, Peter. Now, would Champ Zumbrum please come forward? Okay. Champ is the author of a book on Cressup's rifles. He will talk to us today about the 2 Maryland companies, Michael Cressup's company and Thomas Price's company. Thank you. Okay, welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'll miss it. If I don't miss it, just tell me. Good morning. My name is Champ Zumbron. So, to me, I believe all of you right here are standing on sacred ground as far as the founding of the United States goes. As you heard a couple of key dates here, January 14th, 1775. If you've heard the dates, June 21st, 1775. They are significant dates, but when you hear those historic dates, I personally like to put a sense of place. Where did these things happen? And guess what? It happened right here where you're sitting and standing. These rifle companies were gathering and assembling here. It wasn't a one-date event. They were here pretty much all summer through August 1st. So especially these 4 rifle companies were practicing, assembling, demonstrating right here on these very grounds. If you were in a time machine going back 250 years ago, it would have been an amazing sight. So what is the significance? To me, the significance, there's a couple points I want to mention. I only have 10 minutes, so I got to be quick. The expert rifle companies that were assembled, the 10 rifle companies, are the first official members of the United States Continental Army. So, in effect, folks, the counties you live in, if you live in the counties of Montgomery County, Carroll County, Washington County, Allegheny County, and Garrett County, all those counties I just mentioned had a part in the founding of the U.S. Army. I think that's pretty amazing, and it all happened right here. That's amazing. Now, George Washington, as we know, accepted his commission on June 15th. But you got to remember, the rifle companies were appointed June 14th by the Continental Congress. June 14th. So what's significant to me about that? George Washington wouldn't accept his commission as general until one day after the 10 rifle companies were assembled. And why is that? Well, he needed the assurance that there would be experienced men who had wartime experience and that they knew how to handle guns. And in this case, the riflemen of Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia were expert riflemen. And he asked Continental Congress to assemble these 10 rifle companies consisting of at least roughly 80 men. So he wanted 800 expert sharpshooters in Massachusetts. He wanted to be sure that they were going to be there backing him up in Boston to help him, to support him. And the New England militia, who were primarily at that time in 1775, summer of 1775, they were primarily farmers inexperienced in warfare. And he needed experienced men if he's going to have a chance against the British. As you know, you heard it many times, they're said to be the most powerful army in the world. So George Washington, where did he learn about these riflemen? Well, he learned about them during the French and Indian War. He was impressed with their shooting abilities. During the French and Indian War, he was amazed at their ability to hit targets with their rifle guns 200 yards and plus distance, compared to the British smoothbore muzzleloaders, which were accurate only to about 60 to 70 yards at the time. So it was amazing technology, and it gave Washington an incredible advantage. Now, we heard about the rifle companies. When did they come through here? Captain Daniel Morgan's Virginia Rifle Company passed through Fredericktown on July 17th, 1775, 250 years ago, followed by Captain Price's on July 18th. And Captain Stevenson's company was not far behind. And lastly, Captain Michael Cressup, arriving from Kentucky. He marched out of Fredericktown on August 1st. So just because they're assembling here, folks, it's not, like I said, a one-day event. They're slowly appearing here on these grounds and then assembling their companies, but it's all happening right here. It's not, like I said, all that summer, they're hanging out here on these grounds. So not only that, on these grounds, they demonstrated their shooting skills to a adoring public. The Maryland Gazette records a jaw-dropping account of the shooting exhibitions that they witnessed here right on these grounds of men doing incredible things with their rifles. I don't have detail about it, but you can read more about it in the history books. Excuse me? Oh, yeah. You can read more about it in Cressup's Rifles. You can get it on Amazon. Just check out Champ Zumbron and Cressup's Rifles. You'll find it. But a lot of detail there, but we don't have time to go into that today. So the question is, final, I'm getting ready to close up here. Did the rifle companies make a difference once they assembled here and marched off? Oh, I forgot to mention. So they assembled here, and somehow they ended in Massachusetts, right? Well, it was 550 miles to get to Boston. They didn't fly there, folks. They didn't catch a bus. They walked. And covering more than 550 miles, it took about 25 days for all the rifle companies to get there each, requiring them to march over 20 miles per day on foot. 20 miles a day. I just did a 4-mile hike the other day, and I was pretty tired after 4 miles. But 20 miles a day for 25 to 26 straight days. That's amazing. Upon arriving at Cambridge, Massachusetts, one of the riflemen wrote in his journal, "It was a pleasant jaunt." So did the rifle companies make a difference? The answer is a resounding yes. It's an extraordinary story. These riflemen made an invaluable contribution. They were, in effect, George Washington's Continental Army shock troops, who earned a reputation for their hard-fighting ways and incredible accuracy of their rifles. The soldiers of the British Army feared them that summer in Boston. Today we would call them special forces, something like the Green Berets. The captains of these rifle companies answered directly to George Washington himself. These soldiers were the champions that helped win the American Revolutionary War. Their tactics were designed to disrupt the British troops. The riflemen, if you would have seen them 250 years ago today, you would probably mix some of the men up as Native Americans because they grew up among Native Americans. They painted when they were getting ready for war, they painted their faces just like the Indians in war paint. They learned their tactics from the Native Americans too, hit and run maneuvers. They didn't believe in standing out in an open field, which was a conventional way of British fought. In an open field, just kind of shoot at each other, open field. No, no, no. They hid behind trees, behind rocks, crawled around and snuck up on their opponents. And their main target, this really bothered the British officers. The main target was the officers. It wasn't the enlisted men. And they very seldom missed. Their dress distinguished them, as well as their remarkable skills on a rifle. They wore hunting shirts and moccasins, a distinctly American garment. Where are they? There they are, right there. Some of those gentlemen have, I saw one of the gentlemen had a hunting shirt on that struck fear into the British Army. When the British Army saw someone dressed like that, they had the fear of God in them. They knew it wasn't going to be a good day. They proved indispensable to the Continental Army during the summer of 1775. These backwoodsmen saved Washington's army that summer when he was still organizing his army, when he was at his weakest militarily during the summer of 1775. So this year, our country is 249 years old, but the United States Army this week is 250 years old. And this proves to me that the colonies needed an army before our country could secure the blessings of liberties and freedoms that we enjoy today. Today, we remember, appreciate, and celebrate these long-forgotten soldiers who helped change the course of American history, and it started right here on this grounds, folks, and secure the freedoms and liberties we enjoy today as Americans. And today, we also express our deepest gratitude to all military veterans of all branches who have served since the days of the rifle companies from the American Revolutionary War to the present, and to all those who continue to serve in the United States Army and Armed Forces in all branches around the globe. We are very grateful for them. Thank you. Oh, I should mention something about the Just a brief mention, 2 sentences. I'm a forester by profession, and I'm in charge of the Liberty Tree program. Maryland had the last surviving Liberty Tree, which is where American revolutionaries gathered to plot against the British. We're looking for an appropriate place in Frederick County to plant a Liberty Tree this year, and just keep reading up on it, and you'll probably hear about where we end up planting that tree. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, you heard Champ frequently refer to 4 rifle companies. 2 of those were Maryland, and 2 were Virginia. The Maryland and Virginia rifle companies were closely linked throughout the Revolutionary War, in fact. The 2 Virginia companies were from Frederick County, Virginia. They mustered at Winchester, and that included about 5 counties in that area. And then north of them was Berkeley County, Virginia. They mustered at Shepherdstown. Shepherdstown is many of you know it, on the Potomac at Packhorse Ford. It was then known as Mecklenburg. Both those, as I said, both were considerably larger than they are now, and they were adjacent to western Maryland and what at that time was Frederick County. The 2 Virginia rifle companies were created about the same time as the Maryland companies. The Berkeley County Company was established on June 21st, today, with Hugh Stevenson, who was a veteran of the French Indian War and of Dunmore's War, as the captain. The Frederick County, Virginia Company was created on June 22nd, tomorrow, at Winchester, with Daniel Morgan, who was also a veteran of the French Indian War and of Dunmore's War, appointed as its captain. For both companies and here, the officers spent the next several weeks recruiting skilled riflemen and equipping them, which was no small matter. The plan was for both companies to leave in mid-July, both the Virginia companies to leave in mid-July and meet here in Frederick and then marched to Cambridge together. Now, we'll see how that worked out. Daniel Morgan's company. Okay, here to represent, okay, excuse me. Okay, to represent Daniel Morgan's company, we have Alan Phillips, Vice President of the Colonel James Wood II Chapter, Virginia Society SAR, accompanied by Paul Christensen, President, and Thomas Chip Daniels, who's chapter historian. They will tell you a little bit about Morgan's company.
I'm going to start out telling you a little about Morgan himself. I served as a civilian teamster during the French and Indian War. During the retreat from Fort Duquesne, now Pittsburgh, I was punished with 500 lashes, usually a fatal sentence, for attacking an officer. I thus acquired a disdain for British authorities and their treatment of provincials. I continued as a wagoner after the French and Indian War, with much of my profits initially being spent on alcohol, gambling, and female company. And resulted in several appearances before the Virginia magistrate for charges ranging from assault through burning down the neighbor's tobacco shed to horse theft. I purchased a house between Winchester and Battletown, which is now Berryville, Virginia, with 225 acres of land and 10 slaves by 1774. I would meet Abigail Curry, who would teach me to read and write, and by who I would have 2 daughters, Nancy and Betsy, and later would marry. When the Continental Congress created the Continental Army in June 1775, they called for the formation of 10 rifle companies from the middle colonies to support the siege of Boston. Late in June 1775, Virginia agreed to send 2. I was chosen by a unanimous vote by the committee of Frederick County to form one of these companies and become its commander. Another company was raised from Shepherdstown by Hugh Stevenson. My company of 96 marksmen were nicknamed Morgan's Riflemen. Myself and Stevenson agreed that the 2 companies would rendezvous at nearby Frederick, Maryland, and march together to Boston. Stevenson's arrived at Frederick only to find that I wanted to arrive at Boston first and had stolen a day's march. In conclusion, I marched my men 600 miles to Boston, Massachusetts in 21 days, arriving on August 6, 1775. Locals called it the Beeline March, noting that Stevenson somehow marched his men 600 miles for their meeting point of Morgan Spring in 24 days, so they arrived at Cambridge on Friday, August 11, 1775. In conclusion, I was an American pioneer, soldier, and we become a politician and one of the most respected tacticians of the American Revolution. Have a chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. You may proceed to Cambridge.
Left, face. Mark time, march. Forward, march.
And I believe that Hugh Stevenson's company is on the way. Representing Captain Hugh Stevenson's Rifle Company is Michael Benson, President of the General Adam Stevens Chapter, West Virginia Society, Sons of the American Revolution, accompanied, as you saw, by the chapter's color guard.
The news of the decision by the Second Continental Congress about the forming of the new companies to support General Washington in Boston arrived quickly in Berkeley County. Nowhere within the borders of good old Commonwealth of Virginia was there a more prompt and determined response to the fervent appeal by Patrick Henry than the patriotic citizens of Shepherdstown. In its vicinity, a company of riflemen consisting of more than 98 men was immediately formed for the protection of American liberty. Their banner was emblazoned with the device of the Culpeper Minutemen, a rattlesnake with the significant motto, "Don't tread on me." For their uniform, they adopted the homespun hunting shirt that made of tow linen, fringed around the neck and down the front, and embroidered thereon was the famous Liberty or Death. Leather leggings and moccasins, and each wore a bucktail in his hat and a tomahawk and scalping knife in his belt. Each was also required to furnish his own flintlock rifle. Thus organized and equipped, these gallant men held themselves in readiness to march at a minute's notice and to where their services might be required to defend the rights of the colonies from the encroachment of the British Crown. Accordingly, on June 14, 1775, the Continental Congress resolved that 6 companies of expert riflemen be raised in Pennsylvania, 2 in Maryland and 2 in Virginia, and that each company, as soon as completed, shall march to join the army near Boston. The Berkeley County Riflemen obeyed that summons with brisk and cheerful readiness. On that day of departure, June 17, 1775, not a man was missing. Having partaken of a frugal meal, they rose from the grass and reverently received a blessing from a holy man of God invoked in their behalf, after which, solemnly agreeing together that as many as should be alive on that day in 50 years should meet again at that place. They shouldered their rifles and began their march, making, as one expressed it, a beeline to Boston, which they reached on the 19th of August, having made the journey of 600 miles in only 24 days. They were hailed in every town they passed through, with several putting the whole regiment up for night. They would sometimes parade in formation and presented a grand sight. One of the members of the Berkeley County Riflemen, Henry Bettinger, kept a fairly detailed journal. He starts on July 17, 1775. We set out towards the Potomac and encamped in Miry Springs, about 3 miles from Sharpsburg. The next day, we marched to Fredericktown, and there 2 companies of independents met us 3 miles from town. We marched before them into town. Then they marched with us or by us while we halted, and we followed them out of town. There they halted, and we passed by them, and they gave us 3 loud shouts. And we answered them back, "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!"
Can't go home without that. Just a little bit more. Okay, so what happened with the rifle companies from 1775? In March the next year, 1776, the British pulled out of Boston, never to return. The rifle companies were ordered to New York. As their one-year enlistments expired in June, those who remained were reorganized. The 9 Pennsylvania rifle companies, which had already been organized as a separate battalion, were reorganized as the 1st Continental Regiment in the spring of 1776. In June, again, 1 year, 17th of June, 1776, the Maryland and Virginia rifle companies were authorized by Congress to become a joint unit, which was called the Maryland and Virginia Rifle Regiment. Their cadres were drawn from what was left of the rifle companies of 1775. 4 additional companies were raised in Virginia and 3 in Maryland. So you see that more than a year before the Declaration of Independence, the rifle companies from the Middle Colonies were the first units from outside of New England to join with the troops arrayed around Boston to constitute the Continental Army. For this, these brave frontiersmen deserve a special place in our nation's memory. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to the presentation of the wreaths, I want to call forward our Maryland State President. Dan, can you come on up? Sorry about the wait.
I'd like to bring greetings to everyone from the state of Maryland, Sons of the American Revolution, and congratulate the Sergeant Lawrence Everhart chapter on this great event. We started planning this last year, and the state of Maryland declared this a 250th signature event. So this is a very important event to the state of Maryland. 2 months ago, I was at Lexington and Concord at the exact time that the first shot was fired at 5:30 in the morning on the green at Lexington. And it was an amazing feeling to be there at that exact time, 250 years later. And here I am today at the exact day at this event, and it's just fantastic. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, now I want everybody to line up over here in this corner in rows of 3, and we'll start our march to Boston. We're going to make this living history. I think I'd make it maybe out to the what is it, Wegmans, but that would be the end of it. Okay, it is now time for the presentation of wreaths. This is a traditional ceremony of all our events. I call forth Isabel Suarez. She is the regent of the Carrollton Manor Daughters of the American Revolution.
Thank you, Mike. It is now time for the presentation of wreaths by the various lineage organizations here today. Will the presenters please come up as I call your organization's name? And after your presentation, please stand behind your wreath. So from the Maryland SAR chapters, we have the Sergeant Lawrence Everhart chapter, be presented by Carl Woodcock. I'm sorry. Change? John. Joe Chandler. From the General William Smallwood chapter, John Walls. From the Westminster chapter, Charles Zimmerman. From the Virginia SAR chapters, Colonel James Woods II, presented by Alan Phillips and Chip Daniels. From the West Virginia SAR chapters, General Adam Stephen chapter, Stephen Engelbright. From the Maryland chapters of the DAR, we have the Frederick chapter, DAR, Regent Dorothy Olson. From the Carrollton Manor chapter, DAR, Chaplain Carol Derrick. From the Port Tobacco chapter, Elaine Lawton. From the Virginia chapters of DAR, Catoctin chapter, Nancy Spanis. And from the West Virginia chapter, Packhorse Ford chapter, Michelle Phillips. Please join me in a moment of silence and gratitude for those patriots who gathered here 250 years ago to the day, and all the other patriots that stood up together to achieve our independence. Thank you.
I have one more wreath. Amy Stottlemyre of the Beeline chapter of the West Virginia Daughters of American Revolution. She can come forward. Thank you, Amy. Okay, the presenters may be seated. As we conclude our program today, I would like to call upon Matt Ernst, our chapter secretary, one of the hardest working men I've ever met, and our chapter photographer. He will lead us in the SAR recessional.
It's on the back of the program. Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And now, Reverend Dr. John George, our chapter chaplain, will read the benediction.
Our Lord, in our recalling the daring deeds of our ancestors to establish a new country, I recall the words from Psalm 92. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon, planted in the house of the Lord. They will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, "The Lord is upright. He is my rock. There is no wickedness in him." Amen.
Thank you, Doctor. In closing, on behalf of the SAR and the DAR chapters present today, I'd like to thank you all for coming out to commemorate the patriots who took part in the organization of Maryland Riflemen. I hope we were able to enlighten you about some of the American Revolution history that occurred right here in our city of Frederick, and there's a lot of it. As a matter of fact, the Marquis de Lafayette walked down these steps over here not too long ago to celebrate his return to the United States. That was a reenactment. Special thanks to Mayor Michael O'Connor. Thank you, sir. And to Isela Rabo from County Exec's office. Thank you, Isela. And all the other honored guests, our state president, Dan, and others for coming to this 250th anniversary event. Now, I especially want to thank the young scouts from Troop 1775 who helped us with the flag ceremony. Many of us were young at one time, much like these young ladies, and last night they had a camp out. And I was a scout leader, and I realized that these scouts, they don't camp out. They sit up and talk all night. One of the young ladies told me she was awake until 5 o'clock this morning, yet she came out here, stood in the heat, and helped us present our national colors. I thank you ladies very, very much. This concludes today's ceremony. I'm glad you could stand and stay. It's awfully hot, and it's time to go home. Thank you all very much. Anybody who wants to get a group picture of the riflemen or other organizations, DAR, Matt will be up here. Follow Matt. Matt will take you to where? Oh, up here in front of the podium.